Hello and welcome back to another episode of Friends from Film School. I'm Luke Pilgrim.
I'm Brad Kennedy.
And I'm Ellis Treese.
No, you're not.
No, I'm Ryan Guthrie. Ellis is out of the office today, so I am taking over for him.
Yeah, Ellis is being Chevy Chase and having his own Vegas vacation.
Yep.
Living it up. He'll probably not be able to tell us anything about it because you know what they say about Vegas.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah, and he probably just won't remember any of it. But his photos he's been posting are pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
He might be married when he gets back, too.
True. Could be.
He's going to do the, who was it? Britney Spears, Kevin Federline marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Be married for like 15 days.
Yeah.
Nick Cage just got married in Vegas, too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Well, they do say it's the city of love, so... No, I don't.
You sure?
No one says that.
I feel like they would probably say it's the city of lust before love.
Sin City and the city of love.
I mean, they do have the Eiffel Tower there, so I mean, close enough, right?
Right. This is Ryan's first time on camera. He's usually behind the camera Googling things for us, but today he's on camera, so it's a big deal.
Yeah, this is what I look like.
If you've heard his voice.
Or seen the Matrix little cutaway gag.
Yeah.
We did a few weeks back.
But you probably couldn't tell because he looks just like Keanu Reeves, so you were just
Get
like,
that all the time.
That's just Keanu Reeves. All right, guys, so we all know what we're here to talk about because, let's face it, life is just Mad Max now. That's all we've existed in is the world of Mad Max for 4 weeks.
We're running out of Mad Max films to discuss.
I'm glad because I honestly,
are you
I'm ready? Yeah, kind of. I'm just ready to talk about something else because I've really enjoyed it. We've learned a ton, and honestly, I'd never seen the original movies, so it's been really cool. But we've kind of reached the end of the road here, the end of Fury Road, I guess. Yeah. So here we are. Let's talk about Mad Max Fury Road. Cue title sequence. First off, it came out in 2015. We all know that. This is one of the few Mad Max films that we can actually remember.
I remember, I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast, but I remember...
Don't incriminate yourself.
No. What? I remember you going to go see it.
Yeah, don't point at me like that.
And then our buddy Zach Gove going to go see it because Zach's probably the biggest action movie fan I know.
Yes.
And he was like, you have to go see this movie. And he told that to both of us. And then you and your wife Carrie decided to go. And I'm like, well, I don't know who else to go see this with.
Yeah.
So this was like, honestly, I think one of the first movies, if not the first, that I remember going. It was like a 10 p.m. showing, and I went all by myself to the theater. And it was a awesome experience. It was so cool.
Yeah, especially this movie because there's not a lot of downtime in this movie. So you're like, you're not sitting there going, oh, I'm watching this all alone.
Yeah, you're looking at a theater with all these other people on dates or with their friends, and you're like, wow, I have neither of these.
No, with Fury Road, you're just like from the jump, you're like sucked into this insane ride and it just doesn't stop.
It's just a 2-hour race sequence.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Let's talk about what it's about a little bit. It's an Australian film, of course, post-apocalyptic action movie, co-produced and directed by George Miller. Miller has, this is his baby. He wrote and directed all these Mad Max movies, maybe stole some of the ideas, which we talked about in the last episode, but nonetheless, he brought it to life. This is the 4th installment.
Quite a hiatus, right? Between Beyond Thunderdome and this.
Yes. And this thing, the movie was in just what they called like development hell or something, for just years. I'm trying to remember. I had some notes on that, I think.
There was stuff to do with like, going to Afghanistan and stuff like that. The American dollar went down. The budget went down. Mel Gibson went crazy for a couple of years.
Yep.
And basically, like, Fury Road was written for Mel Gibson. It was the last,
like last
movie
hurrah,
for him.
right?
He was in his 50s. He was on his last leg. And
It's all down here from here.
In this
Sorry, Mel.
Wasteland world. And so, yeah, like, they went through production hell, and basically they had to find a different way to keep the Mad Max franchise going, and they got a younger guy. Originally, it was supposed to be Heath Ledger.
Yeah, I read about
He
that.
died, and then Tom Hardy was the next guy up.
Like, even before that, they played around with doing this movie as a, like, digital, like, 3D modeled type film.
So kind of like parts of the Animatrix sort of thing.
They thought about doing it like that. Miller did, but then he abandoned that pretty quickly. They looked at doing like a video game. They were just trying to like turn this movie, keep the Mad Max world going. But of course, he's working on other films. He's doing Happy Feet and other stuff in between.
Because Beyond Thunderdome came out in 85, right?
Yeah.
And this one came out in 2015. So what is that? 30 years. Yeah. Like because you were born in 87?
87.
So it's like everyone at this table, like our whole lifetime has happened between the last installment and,
Wow, that is crazy to think about. Listen to this. I mean, construction of some of the vehicles began as early as 2003. Wow. Think about that. They started building vehicles and then didn't film for another 10 years.
Yeah.
Because they started filming in like 2000.
And I mean, when you look at the cars and stuff too, it makes sense. Like, every car has very, like,
dude, they're functional.
Intimate details.
Yeah.
Very functional.
They actually work. It's like they're not just props. They're like, listen to this. 150 vehicles were constructed, with only 88 surviving to the end of filming.
Holy cow.
So those were obviously made to be destroyed that didn't survive. But like 150 vehicles, like, because on the behind the scenes, one of the actors was like, I thought you would get the set and they'd have maybe like 20 cars they'd made, and then the rest they would, do it with camera angles or CG or whatever. But no, they built 150 vehicles.
Insane. I mean, here's the crazy thing. So, like, what if you're working on this movie, you're building these vehicles in, what did you say, 2003?
Yeah.
So, because here's the way, like, film works, is that the work you do on a certain project helps propel you to, like, the next level, right? Or more projects.
Right, yeah, so that you can get the budget for your next film or something.
So I feel like if you're the, I guess, prop master, whatever position that would be for those vehicles, no one really knows you're making these vehicles for years, or like, so you're not getting the due or
so the guys behind the scenes.
It's like, okay, I did all this work, I have this amazing vehicle I made for this movie, and then we just gotta sit on it for a decade plus.
I guess they could use it as a portfolio thing, but no one would have seen it in that giant film until 2015.
I mean, I guess the nice thing would be Mad Max is a big enough of a franchise that you tell someone, hey, I was making movies for this unmade Mad Max film.
Right.
And they're like, okay, we can give you a job. I guess that would be the satisfaction of it. But that's still just wild to me.
Yeah.
And then there's an armada of cars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a really cool detail, but George Miller basically wrote the film with storyboards instead of a script.
Did he write the film?
I don't know. I mean, he supposedly worked with the storyboard artist, and that's how they wrote the script. Like him, there's some other writers on the film too, right? But listen, 3,500 storyboards. They wrapped around this entire room, and that was like how people read the script at first.
When did the movie start getting like the genesis of it all start getting planted?
Principal photography was in 2012.
Okay.
So you mean like actual
But I'm talking
story?
about like pre-production. Yeah. So if Beyond Thunderdome came out in 85, like did they start working towards it? Because I mean, from Road Warrior to Thunderdome, it's only a few years.
I know in like 97 they were doing some stuff.
It was done. Fury Road was done in 97, and so
done. What do you mean? Like
pre-production
for Mel Gibson,
like ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's move into principal photography.
Yes.
Let's shoot this thing, and then didn't work out.
And so like the whole movie was So Mel Gibson's character is older. Like at the end of the movie, when they're going up the little elevator thing, Mel Gibson was supposed to go on that and that's the end of his story. He gets with Furiosa. He finds someone who's a match for him.
He
leaves the Wasteland behind, and he joins society again.
He was gonna be like the new leader there,
right?
Oh, okay.
And then they couldn't do that anymore because he's younger and he still has more things to accomplish. Whatever,
gotcha.
He's still got more on his mind.
So once they decide that Mel Gibson wasn't the role for the part, they're like, we have the visuals. Obviously, we have the storyboard. Now we gotta rework it in a way.
Yeah.
Let's add 13,000 more.
Yeah.
A big part of it too was 9/11 happening. I think was a big part of what shut them down, and I don't know.
Which is wild to think because that's such a. I mean, obviously, in fact, it impacted the whole entire world.
Yeah.
But something that's happened in New York City.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not sure when he did the storyboard thing. Like all the stuff that I saw was pretty close to the 2015. Like they started filming in 2012, right? So it looked like it was all current footage of this storyboard. So I don't know. Maybe he didn't do the storyboard stuff until closer to then, or he redid it or something. I don't know. But dude, the whole room is literally, it's like as big as our office or whatever, but or like a conference room. Picture a pretty big conference room, and every wall is wrapped all the way around with storyboards. Yeah. And then when people would come in, that's how they would read the script.
That's awesome.
Because they didn't even have a script yet. Like that, they ended up, I think, writing it down for people after the fact. But so because the movie's so visual, that he wanted to be able to visually tell the story from the beginning.
For some reason, that reminded me of like cave paintings when you said that. Yeah, it's like it's almost something
it is
primitive with it. Yeah,
right. Yeah,
I feel like Pixar does that maybe to a degree as well.
I'm sure because of the animation, you kind of have to.
Yeah,
I mean, just to. I bet animations would. I don't imagine writing an animation script. I feel like you got to start with some storyboards, and just even if you're just conceptualizing the characters and stuff.
So, okay, here's a good question then. Maybe this is just speculating. I don't know if this is true or not, but obviously start working on in 97, get into 2001, they're trying to make the movie, and then 9/11 happens, the US dollar starts deflating, the budget gets bloated, okay, we can't do it. So George Miller then moves on to eventually direct Happy Feet, right? And its sequel before Fury Road, or did Happy Feet 2 happen after? I can't remember. Could you look that up, Ryan?
What year that was?
But especially the first Happy Feet movie, so which is animated, right?
Yes.
CGI computer animated. So if we're saying Pixar and other animation studios are probably used to storyboarding it out, do you think that's where that idea then
maybe that influenced it
in a big way
to go that way? I bet it did.
Did Happy Feet 2 happen in between?
It came out in 2011.
Okay, so he had done 2 full CGI movies at that point. I'm willing to bet that is possibly what happened.
So the other stuff in the behind the scenes, they talked a lot about just having to film this whole movie on the go, because basically the whole movie you're moving forward. Not only is the story moving forward, but you're physically. It's kind of like 1917, that style of just like continuous movement forward in the story, continuous movement with vehicles, or you're walking, or there's bikes, or whatever it is. And they shot 95% of the movie with what they call an edge arm, which is like a car with a crane or a jib arm attached on the top. This didn't exist in the 70s, 80s, like the original Mad Max films. So this opened up a lot of amazing shot opportunities, because when you first meet not first meet Immortan Joe, but when you first see him out in the car, in the vehicles, like driving, and it opens, it like kind of, I think it goes from Max and then over to the guy on the back of the car, and then over to Joe. It's like this really long moving, kind of complicated shot with several vehicles all moving together, and they did that with this giant crane arm attached to the top of. I mean, some of them had like the war rig on top of it. They had like I don't know, 20 feet tall truss, probably. I mean, the truss goes up straight and then at a 90-degree angle over. And then all these things are rigged to it. So, I mean, imagine concert truss, like that type of stuff. You go to see a concert.
Because this is where the guy's playing the guitar, right?
This is like just a rig to shoot from the top of the war rig.
Gotcha.
They're shooting the guy who jumps off and lands on that. Yeah, you know that scene? The guy jumps off and he lands on one of the spiky vehicles and blows it up. And he's like, "Witness! Witness me! Witness! And then they go mediocre.
Yeah, the behind the scenes of that too is crazy because they had to pull him up just before he hit the car.
Yeah, like inches above it.
Yeah, so like you see behind the scenes, like he gets like this close to it.
Yeah, like maybe a foot or something. The dude literally jumps though, like just like in the movie. I mean, it's legit. But see, that's why there's the truss. The truss is holding him up like a bungee cord almost. Truss goes up over. He's attached. He jumps. And they catch him like right before, and then they pull him back up. And he did it multiple times.
Crazy. The stunts in that movie.
And so that's exactly. If you've been listening along to the whole series on the Mad Max movies with us, like that was our question, I guess, at the end of Beyond Thunderdome, right? When going into Fury Road after 30 years, have they learned how to do stunts better?
I would say they have. I think they have. Watching it was. They were so much safer. They had just like real.
How many
pros.
Cardboard boxes did they have to save the people?
No cardboard boxes this time. Like real pros on set, like helping these people figure out fight sequences, crashing vehicles, and man, the stunt guy who did the famous flip, the one that we talked about in Road Warrior, he flips head over end, right? And what was interesting was they talked about that in behind the scenes. They said that he went into relaxation mode because he knew he was injured. Which is crazy that these stunt guys can think in those terms. If I got hurt, I would just instantly like.
I guess it's shock, right? Like,
well, I think they do it on purpose. Like like you get hit and you go limp.
For it.
Yeah, you go limp so that you don't hurt yourself. Because if you're constricting, you're gonna break something more. So, and that's the thing. Like a lot of times you hear about people getting in car accidents. They were drunk, and because they were drunk or passed out, it actually saved them. I'm not saying get drunk and drive, people. Hear me, okay? Not saying that, all right? Just saying relaxation mode.
Don't cut the audio and use it against them.
Yeah. So anyways, the same guy, though, that did that stunt comes back to Mad Max Fury Road. He's working on this film, and he wants to do the big car roll scene. They rolled this car like 6 times. I don't know. It's supposedly record-breaking number of flips. And he wants to do that one to go out on. This is his, like, he's hanging up his helmet. He's done with, this is his last stunt thing. And he does this one.
He's like, I either die doing this.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It's one of the first ones you see in the film, I think. But man, it's insane. He literally, he's got to hit this thing just perfect. And he rolls this car like 6 times. It's exploding, and then he gets out. Everybody cheers. And he's fine.
It's the Interceptor. It's Max's Interceptor. And he did the first stunt of the movie, and he did the last stunt of the movie, which was the guitarist guy's little truck. You know what I'm talking about? With all the speakers. He crashed that one into the war rig.
The war rig.
To end the movie.
Did you see the guy who drove the war rig?
Yeah. That
sequence, dude, is crazy because when they crash the war rig, it has to land perfectly between these 2 big rocks, and this is all like on a giant lot, I guess. The rocks are just built; they're not real, but they're placed where they need to be. Like when you watch the film, all the edges are CGI'd so that it looks like they're in this canyon, but it's really like a parking lot, and he has to hit this spot just perfectly in order to, I guess, just yank the wheel. He flipped this war rig to land between those 2 rocks and just slide all the way up to the camera. And the cameras are all, of course, in these things to keep them safe, like they've done in all the Mad Max films. But the guy does it. He hits his mark perfectly and flips it. Well, there's a dummy inside there with him that looks like Nux. It's and so George Miller's watching on the screen. He sees that thing, not realizing, of course, the guy who's driving it has a helmet. He's in like this like plexiglass shielded cage type thing on his side. But you see Nux on the other side. It looks like the guy driving it. That's the main thing you can see. So the thing flips and it lands on his head. So like Nux's head, like of course the rubber
Dummy.
is made out of like rubber. He hits this thing and it looks like that they just basically decapitated their stunt guy. So and behind the scenes, George Miller's just like, did he hit his head? And he's like freaking out, and everyone runs to go check on him. He stays in like the video village. I think he probably didn't want to go over there and see it, but it's just like this tense moment where they build up, and then he sees he's okay, and he's like, oh, because he didn't realize that was the dummy in there. But it did. It like shaved off the top of Nux's like dummy's head.
He's like, I'm ruined.
Yeah. It was wild, man.
No happy feet 3 for him after that.
Yeah.
No Lorenzo oils too.
But they had like the guys on those bikes, you know, they were driving off the side of a like mountain, dude.
And those guys were like the top motorcycle guys or dirt bike guys in Australia.
Yeah.
So like all of them, they were like doing tricks, and they did tricks that were like most suitable for, you know, the universe, whatever. But yeah, so many stunt guys are involved. All those cars, they had to have stunt guys. Just crazy.
The bikes though, like they go off this cliff type thing, just flying off of it full speed, and then they disappear out of frame. But there's like a wire holding
Just
them.
barely holding.
Yeah, like it's insane. Like they go off this thing, and so that they can just drive kind of freely and not worry about it because they're connected to the cables. But it's insane to watch. My favorite thing though, we talked about this in the other episode, was like, were the polecats real? Because we were like, maybe they CG'd some of that stuff. The polecats are 100% real dudes on these poles, jumping to vehicles, and they're in the air. They're 20 feet up in the air. There's guys on the bottom to do they created basically like these giant metronomes. And so these guys, they have weights, counterweights, or these guys are standing kind of helping on the bottom as they swing. And these dudes practice this. They did it for months, like apparently like just filming their parts on the as the polecat characters. And they even put Tom Hardy up there for his parts.
Really?
He's like really up there. He was super like freaked out apparently. He said he was so scared in the interview. He's like, it's scary.
Things that from the beginning of the shoot was not something I was excited about. Overexcited probably about. I was scared, and I wasn't looking forward to it. And he strapped me on it anyway, and that was that. And it was scary. It was scary.
He just kept saying,
He was like, and then he just strapped me up there, and I was like, well, you can't go back now.
yeah. He was like, he put me on there, and that was it. And then
I thought it was really cool that they got actual Cirque du Soleil people to teach them how to do it. And all that.
That's
I thought
awesome.
it was awesome.
yeah.
Dude, I bet this movie was the type of movie, like, obviously Mad Max is a huge international franchise, but I bet for Australians, like you mentioned the best, like, motorcyclists in Australia, I bet they were like, I get to be in a Mad Max movie.
Yeah.
Like the first one. I bet that was such a huge cultural moment for them.
Now, where's Tom Hardy from?
He's from England, I'm pretty sure.
He apparently
It wasn't, who'd you mention earlier? Heath Ledger? He's Australian though, right?
I think he is. Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, I think he might be.
Tom Hardy, though, he did not get along with George Miller very well.
Really?
When they were making the film, he had a hard time, understanding the vision. He couldn't see what this
The
guy's
man
trying.
couldn't walk into the storyboard room and see what was going to
For
happen.
real, you got 3,500 frames you can look at. I mean, come on, dude. But yeah, he couldn't understand what this vision, I guess. And then like when they started doing the press tour in Paris or somewhere, he like opened up all of them by like apologizing publicly to George Miller, saying like he's a genius. He was like, the movie's incredible, and he's like, I'm sorry that I doubted him, blah blah blah.
Yeah, wow. I heard too that him and Charlize Theron did not get along.
They didn't
at
either.
all.
I feel like Tom Hardy is a very hard person to get along with in general.
I mean, Shia LaBeouf has we say this around the office a lot, but Shia LaBeouf famously said that he's like a gorilla when talking about Tom Hardy.
He said he's a real gorilla on set.
Yeah.
You know, like he basically he was saying it's his set and like everybody gets on board with him.
Didn't Tom Hardy like pee in corners on the set of Lawless?
I don't know if that was true, if he was saying that's like he was like marking his territory, like if he was saying that kind of metaphorically, but I mean, maybe he actually did. I mean, he really did do some crazy stuff, like where like him and Shia LaBeouf were like naked, like wrestling or whatever. Do you remember this story?
Yes.
He like throws him down the stairs. Someone got hurt. I don't remember, but this is just the guy. He's the kind of dude he is.
What type of guys being dudes?
Dudes being guys.
I feel like some sets are like a real frat house environment of just craziness. Speaking of peeing on set, though, this is completely off base, but did you know that Robert Downey Jr. would like pee in bottles on the set of Zodiac because it was like the first movie he ever shot digitally, and working with David Fincher. Fincher does like hundreds of takes anyway, so he got so upset. He's like, I'm just going to pee in all these bottles, and he would just leave stacks of bottles around just to try to get upset David Fincher. It was weird.
That's hilarious. So yeah, like the guy who shot this, that just made me think. You said digital though. Obviously this movie was filmed digitally, but the guy who that filmed it, what was his name? I can't remember his name. Like Seal, his last name's Seal.
Mm-hmm.
He's like the guy that I guess was like the DP or whatever. But this was the first film that he had done. He came out of retirement. Yeah, his first film he had done like with digital cameras. He used, 6 ARRI Alexa Pluses and 4 Alexa M's, as well as a number of, get this, Canon EOS 5Ds. Those are DSLRs.
Wow.
Yeah, they use 5Ds. And Olympus Pen EP5, not sure about that camera, but they were used as like crash cams for the action sequences, which is what I guess they put the DSLRs in these vehicles or whatever. I imagine
probably stuff you could really fit in tight spaces.
Yeah, I imagine you have to have a lot of cameras rolling if you're going to roll vehicles and blow stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
So, first time though he'd shot with digital cameras, and because of the fast nature required for the edits, Miller asked Seal to keep the focus of the shot centered for each scene, which allowed the audience to quickly orient towards it. So if you notice that's like stylistically, a lot of the shots, the action is in the center, and that's because he wants those fast cuts.
Yeah, and I've seen that on Instagram too. There's a really cool thing where it has like a little cross in the middle, and during that fight scene where Mad Max is fighting Furiosa, they don't leave the center of the frame. So you can look at the center and understand what's going on in the entire frame.
That's cool.
And that whole sequence. But another thing that's cool is they manipulated the frame rate for a lot of this like shots. So like they would lower it from 24 frames per second, and then they would raise it back up, because if George Miller saw it and he didn't think that people could understand what was going on, he slowed it down or picked it back up
or sped it up if needed.
Yeah, and that's a thing I feel like you could see throughout the Mad Max series. I feel like maybe Beyond Thunderdome had it the least, but definitely the original and the Road Warrior had that. And I remember reading a little excerpt where he talked about how important when you're on set, and I can relate to this, like you don't realize how fast the motion of it is going, and you either have to slow it down or speed it up, because the pacing on set can be different than what you need in the final edit. And I agree. I think in Fury Road he really mastered that aspect of it.
Yeah, it gave it it seemed like a stylistic choice too, but like I wonder too if how they did that. I'm not sure how you change the frame rate. I don't know. It seems like they had to do some stuff during filming as well, but his wife edited the film, Margaret Sixel, and it said that she, because he wanted it to like stand out from other action films, and he felt like she could do that. She had 480 hours of footage to edit. It took her 3 months to watch all that footage.
Get me a wife like that.
For real.
There's a little mommy who can edit.
Man, let's see what else was
That's so he
sure.
he did like the first couple of ones, and he's like, forget it, I'm going to marry
got
a
this
girl.
one.
Yeah.
No, but the cool thing about him speeding it up, like you were talking about the first couple of Mad Max movies, it was obviously sped up.
Like the feral kid
Yeah.
tossing the boomerang.
And this one, it didn't feel sped up. Like when he's running through the tunnels at the beginning,
Yeah.
it feels like frantic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
See-
you can feel the way like he feels right now. Like
See, I
everything
wonder
That's like
if they did like.
that's
I
like
don't know if they could hand crank it.
No,
but-
no, no. That's the thing. Is like there has to be something with the shutter speed
Yeah.
too, because if you crank up your shutter speed, it'll give it that kind of look. Because there's like no motion blur. You're just seeing
Yeah.
this erratic, shaky stuff, and that's how they did like the zombies in 28 Days Later. Like those scenes that they're running, it's like it's like this shaky, cartoonish look. It's like real jerky looking, like an old film or something.
Right.
And that's because those old movies were hand cranked at the wrong speed because they couldn't really match the speed it was filmed at. So it has to be surely they shot with a like really high shutter speed as well, and then when you crank up the shutter speed and then you change the speed, and I think we've done that before on some stuff, it does give it that look. So most likely I would guess they had to have a high shutter speed, then when you speed it up a little, it makes it look really crazy.
Because it's like, here's a simple film school technique. So your frames per second, typically for films it's 24 frames per second. Sometimes things can be 30, sometimes 60, but for most movies it's 24. But for your shutter speed, you want that to be twice the frames per second. So typically it should be like 50, but if you're filming in slow motion at like 60 frames per second, you want your shutter to be 120. But when you, like Luke's saying, when you change that up, it's going to give you a certain effect.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like this, Saving Private Ryan did the same thing. It's what gives it that look, but it's basically like you don't end up with like cinematic motion blur. You know, you end up with no motion blur. If you crank it up to like 120. Or whatever, instead of just doubling your frame rate, then that's probably how they achieved most of that stuff. But and it's not all the time. It didn't feel like. So I wonder if they probably intentionally had parts where they shot it that way.
It was probably in the storyboard.
Yeah, it says do the jerky look thing here.
Why your favorite action movies look jerky.
Yeah, there's an article. Why some scenes in your favorite action movies look jerky. What is strobing? I don't know. I'm sure this is a great article. Frame rate and motion blur explained. Yeah, I think we've explained it. I think that's basically all it is right there.
Close the tab. Look, there's Fury Road.
Yep.
Explanation. Well, y'all guys want to take a break and then we jump back into more Fury Road?
Let's do it. Hey guys, we just wanted to take a quick second to tell you we have launched our Patreon page. It's a place where listeners can help support the show and gain access to exclusive content.
Now for $5 a month, our Patreon members get bonus episodes like our classic movie nights, where we watch classic films and talk in depth about what we liked, what hasn't aged as well, and how they achieved some of their special effects.
You'll also get early access to episodes before they're released to the public, and we'll give you a shout out on an episode of the show as well. Now this is a growing platform, so we'll be adding all kinds of new content over time, and you can gain access to all of it exclusively at patreon.com/friends from film school.
You can follow at Sozo Bear Films on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, let's get back to the show. And we're back. One cool thing is they used a remote-controlled giant tanker that when they blew up. That there's a scene they used 1,000 liters of fuel, which I don't know if that tops that one in
Road Warrior.
Road Warrior, where they blow up this little town, but it's pretty wild. They've got this giant tanker thing with a remote control, like it's a giant RC car, and they just
explodes.
Yeah, and they've got several cameras in front of and beside it. They're just all moving with it, and they just move it along the desert, and at some point they cue the explosion, and some guy's driving it with a remote control. That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I
It's
feel
like every 10-year-old's dream.
I was about to say, I feel like George Miller's like a big kid who was like,
Yeah.
I want to like have a car that's, I want to make a car that's 2 cars stacked on top of each other.
And he made up names for all the cars too. I didn't write any of them down, but he had these like really extravagant names
Yes.
for the cars, why everything was there.
And the,
Well, that's because he had 30 years to make this movie.
yeah.
that, and a big part of it too, I think, was the production designer. They in one of the interviews, he took like some of like the characters and everything that George Miller gave him, and he designed a lot of the cars and designed like just like they did with the costumes in the previous films, where they gave these backstories to these people. They did that with the cars. The cars have their own kind of history and backstory.
Something cool he did again too was when in 2009 there was another hiatus, whatever, in production, and he took that time to really map out the backstories and whatnot of Furiosa and Nux and whatnot, and he got Charlize Theron and the guy who plays Nux,
Nicholas
Holt, and they helped him map out the backstories just like they did in the old films with the actors. He was like, "You guys figure out your backstory. What do you want to be? Blah blah blah."
Who decided for Furiosa to have a robotic arm?
I'm not sure, but I know there were different phases of that, and like it was up here and then it was here, and like the costume department, whatever, they had her looking like too sexy at one point, so she was like, she can't be this. And then Charlize Theron got on set, and she had just done a movie, was going through hair and makeup all the time, and she was like, "We're gonna be in the desert. Why don't I just shave my head? We don't have to worry about my hair anymore."
That's cool.
And like that.
And then
was
they're
the
like, "Hey,
look.
we're going to postpone filming for 2 more years."
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's awesome, though. I feel like that character is such an iconic character, though.
Yes,
Like,
her look, everything is so cool.
And the movie is basically about Furiosa.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was talking about it, how
Who was?
George Miller,
Okay.
sorry, about how in Road Warrior and in Thunderdome, it's not told from Max's perspective. So it feels in Fury Road how the movie's like might not be about Max, but it's a story being told about Max.
Yeah.
So like people were just in the Wasteland whispering about Max, and that's kind of how the story is told, which is cool.
That is cool. I mean, this says here, I mean, feminism is like a huge part of the film, and it's such a big, it's
I mean,
centered around that. And
I mean, the whole plot, like Immortan Joe's has this compound where they're just birthing all these
Sex
kids.
slaves.
and
Right, they're sex slaves.
and-
They're milking women, literally. But it says throughout the film, her character demonstrates the physicality of a hero committed to a rescue mission, which sets up the start of a matriarchy as an antidote to the barbarian, warlike tribes that came before. And it says these elements contrast this film with the male-centered hero in the previous Mad Max films. That's cool. I can't wait to see the like Furiosa, like where they go with her story in the next films.
Super interesting too, because this movie in the timeline of Mad Max takes place before Beyond Thunderdome, right?
Yeah, and I read a conflicting timeline the other day too that said that Fury Road is basically a standalone type of thing. Not a standalone, but they wanted to distance it from that original trilogy.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's kind of like what James Bond does. You know what I mean? Like they have this guy that plays this character, but it's always a different story. It's not connected to, who previously played it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I always kind of felt like, even in the other 3 films, it's almost, you said it, especially Road Warrior and Beyond Thunderdome, it's really framed in these other people whispering about this Max guy that comes in. He's the Western trope of this hero comes to town, saves the people, and they still kind of talk about him. He becomes local legend, so to speak. And I feel like that really works, because even the main prototype I can think of those types of movies would be the Fistful of Dollars trilogy with Clint Eastwood, and all 3 of those, it doesn't say it's the same guy, but it is Clint Eastwood, but they're 3 different stories, and they could be completely unrelated, or they could be completely related. It's really up to you, as the viewer. And I feel like that's kind of the way the Mad Max series works, is yeah, it could be the same guy and he's just going from town to town, or Max, this could be a completely different Max than the Mel Gibson Max.
Right. He's a stranger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
sometimes he has a mullet, sometimes he doesn't.
yeah. Well, like in the beginning of this one, he has really long hair, and then they're like holding him down, cutting his hair. So that's what I was like wondering. How did this fall into that storyline of it being a prequel or whatever, like we talked about in the other ones?
Speaking of that, when they're cutting his hair, did you see the kid go up and grab his hair?
Yeah.
Just like in Thunderdome, when the war boy type character was taking the hair. So many good connections to the old films too.
Yeah, what other Easter eggs?
I'm looking up some Easter eggs here.
Oh, the visions that he has. There was one I was talking about Luke about it earlier, but like Toe Cutter in the first movie when his eyes are bulging out, there was a very quick cut of somebody's eyes bulging out. I think it was Toe Cutter. And he has visions of his daughter. Yeah. And like she's the one that's like telling him to get up, whatever, keep fighting type of thing.
Sorry. What is this? This article is not.
This is one of those weird websites where it's like, oh, here's the article, but it's really a YouTube video.
Yeah, there's like
and then you keep on scrolling, and then you see Sigourney Weaver for Avatar 2.
Yeah, there's
and you realize it's a different article.
And then you can't leave their website.
Yeah.
Look at this. Okay.
It's weird.
Another cool thing is like the ties to like the westerns, like you're talking about. How the cars are. Like they're basically like their prize horses, and like that's the only thing that matters. Like the cars rule the world, and that's based on like Immortan Joe that has the nicest, biggest car because he's the king of that land. So really cool stuff like that.
What about you said you were going to mention it in the podcast? Because here's some backstory. We write our own backstory for the podcast before we get on. But before talking, I looked at Ryan's notes, and
they were illegible.
Yeah, to us, but hopefully not to him. But all that being said, he had a note that I could read, and it said Zoe Kravitz, and you said that would be something you would bring up. So
all caps.
What's Zoe Kravitz?
She just means a lot today.
Yeah, I was about to say he's just in love with her.
Yeah, no, that's the woman that I would like to be with. She's currently taken. But I mean, I grew up a big Lenny Kravitz fan. Yeah, so then I found out, Zoe Kravitz was around. I'm not really of age for her, I don't think. But she killed.
Hey, don't give up hope, all right, man. There's always a chance.
When
maybe Furiosa
passes back the gun, she's like, load this up, and the lady's like, I don't know how to do it, and Zoe Kravitz is like, I got it.
Yeah.
Reload the clip.
I was like, yeah, you got it.
I just love that the merry band of these women that they're all going together. You got Nux and this war boy. It's a different troop than obviously the kids in Beyond Thunderdome or the town settlement and Road Warrior. And
they did a good job of doing the girls' backstories too. So like the redheaded girl basically changes Nux's whole perspective of life. He finally has something to live for, and changes sides, whatever. Maybe he changes sides because he knows he's gonna die, but also, I mean, this is an opportunity for him to kind of go to Valhalla and live, die, live again.
Yes. So, all right, this is interesting. I just found about the eyeballs you were talking about, and this kind of sums up everything we were just saying. It says that there is a nod to the first film, Hugh Keys Burns' appearance in the first Mad Max, and it is the eyeballs. What's crazy is they didn't like reshoot or anything; they lifted it directly from the first movie.
So they used that same shot.
They used that shot.
That's awesome.
And it says it's clearly a fan baiting nod to that scene, especially since Miller didn't opt for a reshoot that might have improved the effects somewhat. It almost feels like Miller is consciously playing around with the classification of the film as neither reboot nor sequel. role. The director was always keen that his franchise didn't really have too much of an obvious linear timeline, despite the fact that it was released as a trilogy, and his frequent references back to earlier points in the franchise seem like very provocative jaw jut, whatever that means, to anyone attempting to peg this as a pure reboot. So I think that sort of sums up what we were saying, like the stuff about it being a prequel, whatever. I don't think people are putting more thought into it than George Miller did, honestly.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it seems like that for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's telling his actor, make your own backstory. I ain't going to do it.
Yeah.
But what about I think this is one aspect of the film that we haven't gotten to talk about yet, but the color. Just this movie has a look, obviously we talked about the way it was shot with the cameras and, the frame rates and shutter speed, but the actual color of this movie is so unique.
Yes. It's like, I remember reading when it came out how he didn't want it to look like other, I guess, like desert scenes. Because typically you shoot something in the desert, there's a color palette that everyone understands, and that's muted colors, that's warm tones, that's like desaturated feeling.
And he already pretty much did that with Beyond Thunderdome, with the Lawrence of Arabia callback. So
yeah, and he went the opposite direction. He went saturated, bright colors, like beautiful. There was a part where he said, and this actually also reminds me of how I was kind of poking fun last episode, how these people are in this apocalyptic world, but they still have so much style. And like, but he was like, just because it's a wasteland doesn't mean people can't make beautiful things. That was his sort of argument for these vehicles. And I'm guessing too, just for his whole world he's built of the style, the crazy style.
That some dude can look like a crow just walking across on sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy got style.
Yeah, but like the exhaust on Immortan Joe's car, like very small, had his emblem like printed onto the exhaust. So like the steel work and everything that went in, like all of the intimate details that are going into every single piece of art that's being created it's crazy.
What's wrong with Immortan Joe's back and everything? Is that from Fallout type stuff?
So Hugh Keys,
Hugh Keysburn.
Yeah, he was asked about what was going on. He was like, I'd rather not discuss what was going on with my character. So,
which meant he didn't do his homework to write his backstory.
He has no idea. He's like, just give me a bunch of warts and moles and we'll be good.
Like, yeah, he looks like he had radiation poisoning or something.
His equipment was really cool though.
Yeah,
because they got like the bulletproof whatever armor.
It's like clear.
And then his mask is an old Russian gas mask. They put horse teeth on it.
Oh wow,
and
that's what that is.
It's like a fully functioning oxygen mask though, because like he has the little
thing
in the back
while filming.
He's like, oh, this is gonna be tough. There's too much dust around here.
Yeah,
for real.
That's for real though. The dust. The guy who was like, I don't know, some kind of supervisor on set, but he early on was like, are we going to worry about the dust? Like, do we have to, do something with that? And George Miller was like, no, dust is our friend.
We have cardboard boxes. We don't have to worry about the dust.
He said dust is our friend. And I guess that meant he was going to use the dust in a way, but it does get in everything. I mean, all of your equipment would be covered in dust.
Lord.
They just threw it out after.
That was cool though. Like when Furiosa drops that like, shovel thing on the front of that vehicle, and it just like dirt just flies up to put the fire out.
So cool.
That was cool. And then she's like knocking all the dirt out later, all the sand and dirt.
So yeah, with the color, you were talking about how it was the classic. A lot of people make the classic desert look, right?
Yeah.
But this movie is so different.
Yeah, they went full on saturation instead. And they manipulated, pretty much every shot, I think, had some sort of sky replacement or something done to it. Now, they were really practical and in camera with their stunts and with their special effects.
Yeah, it was like 95%, like all done in camera.
They did all that in camera, but then all the VFX was stuff they did in post to just to just supplement that, which is cool. And that's when it looks awesome. Those are real things flying and falling and rolling around and exploding. And I mean, the one shot that I thought looked better before they did the effects was the last when the war rig crashes. I was just like, the whole thing with the guy's guitar flying forward was not really necessary. The shot was beautiful, man. I mean, like, they shot it with a camera that shot 300 frames per second, like a Phantom something, 300 frames per second, and this thing is just literally, a man has risked his life to crash it. It comes flying at the camera, just pieces, piece by piece, just rolling and falling.
And then they composited the guitar, right?
Yeah, and they actually, and what was cool is they shot this scene separately. They did the first crash, which is the war rig. Then they did the speaker vehicle, whatever that's called, the guy with the guitar. It crashes into it next. And because they had two angles, they could obviously cut between them really easily. So when that thing with the speakers crashes in, then they composited this guitar flying forward. But I think the guitar was real. They shot it on a green screen or something. Just like the steering wheel coming toward it. That's a real steering wheel that they rigged up somehow on a green screen, and it flies toward the camera. It's all just composited, which is cool. It's not CGI'd, but still, the shot was so cool looking without that. Just that guitar flying forward never did it for me.
Yeah. And right before he crashed, they had something happen to where every speaker, everything was loosened up so that it would go flying when it crashed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, because they rigged vehicles to be able to, like, snap in half or things like that.
Holy cow.
It's like, and they do that in a lot of movies. Like, if a guy needs to, like, kick through a door, they're gonna make sure that it's got the proper brakes,
got rubber hinges.
It's got just stuff that's gonna, like, it's gonna give where it needs to give, and if it doesn't, he's gonna hurt his foot.
Yeah.
You know,
ow, my foot.
Yeah.
Did y'all know that with the color correction, George Miller originally wanted this movie to be in black and white?
Whoa.
And the studio's like, we're not making this, 185 million action movie and releasing it in black and white.
I think I saw he had, like, very small releases of it in, like, a black and chrome type.
Yeah. So the, I guess, trade-off was, okay, I'll do the movie, and I guess he figured out, like, I'm going to up the saturation, do all that crazy stuff, which I think makes it just as iconic. No other movie really looked like that, but what the studio allowed them to do was release those black and chrome special edition versions.
I wish I saw one of those in theaters.
Yeah, which is cool because I think even more so than just flipping it to a black and white setting, he they redid color correction, making sure it looked, you have some really deep, rich blacks in that, and just really played up that color, template.
Do you remember seeing the music box in Fury Road?
Music
I wouldn't
box.
say it's at, like, the very beginning, right?
No, I don't remember seeing
It says it's in there, like, harking back to the start of Road Warrior when Gibson's Max finds the same trinket he ends up giving to the feral kid. There's a shot in Fury Road when Toast, the knowing, that's one of the girls' names, I think, when a wind wins?
Wines.
What am I doing? Wines a little music box. I don't remember that.
Winds.
She was winding, guys. I can't read. It also says that messes with the timeline, though.
Yeah.
If you choose to believe it's the same music
Which
box.
is, I think it's the point that what you just read earlier, Miller just doesn't care.
He just wants to mess with everyone.
Yeah.
It's for him. Like, everything about Mad Max seems to be...
There's the spiky car. There's the car that ate Paris. We were looking up before starting recording that apparently George Miller stole even more ideas than we realized from Peter Weir. He made a movie in 75 called The Car That Ate Paris, and it's a Volkswagen Beetle with just giant spikes on it.
I mean, it looks exactly like the the cars in Fury Road.
Yeah.
We need to put that picture in there.
It's just wild.
Save. The Cars That Ate Paris. And the movie also the plot sounded similar to Mad Max in that it's these people trying to survive. They're souping up cars, and they're kind of living on the fringe of society.
Do you feel like if Miller had the budget for Fury Road for the Road Warrior and I guess the original Max, I feel like Beyond Thunderdome's pretty fully realized in how he wants it, like visually, but I feel like wait.
I'm just laughing because I can't read.
What do you want me to read? I can read it for you.
No, I'm just saying. I was like, wins.
Wins. She wins the
This is like
music box.
Dumb and Dumber.
Music.
It reminded me of Dumb and Dumber, like the.
Lloyd, you okay? Harry, it's Mary. Who? Mary with the briefcase. Mary Swanson. Swanson. Wool. Host. Annual. Host. Annual. An annual. Meeting of.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
forgot.
It's okay, so if he had the budget for this movie, for especially
For
the
Fury-
Road Warrior,
Okay, for the Road Warrior. Yeah.
like, do you think it would? How much crazier would it have been?
Well,
Because I feel like this is Mad Max that he always had in his head fully realized.
Right. Yeah, I think so too. I think without the advances in technology and stuff, he wouldn't have been able to do some of this stuff back then. Like just like that car rig I was talking about. I mean, being able to put a big crane on top of a car and drive through the desert, and I mean, because that's how he's getting these shots that are like real. This guy, the Doof Warrior, that's what the dude's called.
Yeah.
The Doof Warrior up there, like there's a guy really up there.
You think he really likes food, and he's like, I'm going to flip this.
Yeah.
he's a famous Australian musician.
Does he? Is that his thing? Like
his name's,
shooting fire out of his guitar, or was that?
I think that was
was just like that's like
Okay.
his weapon.
and they made it out of like pots and pans or something.
Yeah, it was like a bedpan.
Yeah.
And like parts of a trumpet and
Did it really play? Did it really make
Yeah.
sounds?
it works. Yeah, and the flamethrower's fully real too.
That's crazy.
That's a roll of a lifetime.
Yeah.
But my point was the camera is like way up in the air on top of this
Yeah.
thing, and then it can just move. All these people move, all these cars moving in the background. The camera can move and jib up and down. I mean, that's amazing.
Speaking of that, like the score in this movie is incredible too.
Uh-huh.
And like with the guitarist guy, every time he passes by, you hear his guitar. It's like, you know, the ambulance effect, whatever. Like you hear it loud, and then as he gets further away, so does the
Yes.
music, and then
That's cool.
the score of the movie picks back up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like a diegetic sound, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's like you hear diegetic sound on screen. That means something in the scene is motivating that sound, or it's actually coming from it. Wow. It says here, though, this is, speaking of backstories, this guy, apparently it suggests that the mask he's wearing is the face of his dead mother. Heyo.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Okay.
But who's the guy? Who was the composer? Or like, it's like
Junkie XL.
Yeah.
That also did the score for like Batman versus Superman. I love that score in that movie when like Wonder Woman shows up and it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that the score is so much better than the
Junkie
old.
XL.
Yeah.
What a name. I love this guy.
Oh, I was like, Brad just said that. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
The gyro captains.
Did we say that on air, or was that?
I think we did. How his helmet was like on one of the cars.
Did you say that on air, or was that before we started?
I think Ellis had
can't-
mentioned
what?
it.
The gyro captain, like his.
Oh yeah, I said that in one of the previous episodes. I
Okay,
think.
cool, yeah. But yeah, just to reiterate, they like have the gyro captain's goggles and whatever, all of it, his little helmet thing on one of these vehicles the one that Max is like tied to.
See,
right?
that's the only thing I feel like that's missing from this movie. You don't have Bruce Spence just flying around suddenly going, "Hey,
yeah. This is a stick up. Yeah, I wonder if that kid's in this movie.
I don't know."
That would have been cool.
Another cool thing, the quote to end the movie is, "Where must we go, we who wander this wasteland in search of our better selves?" And then it says, "The first history man," like quoted from him. And the first history man is from the comics, and it's this guy who basically tattoos himself with the history that he knows. And so people can...
So they're Mad Max comics.
Right.
Okay.
And so like that's like the old lady in the movie. The lady who's pointing the shotgun at Immortan Joe, which is cool because they did that in the first Mad Max with an old lady pointing a shotgun at Toe Cutter. But she's tattooed from head to toe, and I was like, why the hell is she
so tattooed?
Yeah.
And she's a history woman. So... And then there's
so they're like literally people hold the history instead of books.
Right.
That's
like
cool.
They have it written on their bodies.
So
And
with this that Luke has pulled up, it says the Road Warrior tattoo, and that's on Max, right?
That's Max's back.
Very-
Yeah, whenever they're putting stuff on him that says like Universal Donor, it says Road Warrior.
Yeah.
Which I guess is just a nod to who he is.
Dude, that's crazy.
But anyway, there's a comic book after Fury Road, apparently, that came out, kind of talking about what's going on with the Capitol or the Citadel. And it says basically like kids are starting to learn history from the history man. So like they just have this particular person who sits there and, basically tells stories.
He's like,
yeah. I imagine like Homer, like just sitting there like, this is the person that holds the whole history.
He's like, kid, read my armpit. What does that say?
I can't read this.
Yeah. Homer Simpson.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Listen to this. The tattoo on him, on Max, also says genitals intact. So
good for him.
That's good.
He's not a eunuch.
Yeah.
Dude, because I mean, probably a lot of people are losing genitals
it's a
in this
bad
world.
world out
Yeah,
there.
like how many people are getting their genitals knocked off?
Just, I mean, you go outside, you're liable to get something.
Exactly. I mean, you get it squished, stepped on or something.
Bullets flying.
Bullets?
everywhere.
Yeah, that guy shooting the guns.
God, he was pissed.
This says also, it's debatable whether Max's familiar look actually counts as an Easter egg, but it's at least good to see that Miller chose to stick so closely to the character design. He's wearing the same leather jacket for at least part of the film, including the missing sleeve that was removed after his arm was run over by a bike, and he's also still got the same leg brace as Mel Gibson sported after being shot in the original Mad Max. That's cool.
I didn't realize that's where the leg brace came from.
Yeah, and he started this. He had the shaggy hairstyle like at the beginning of Beyond Thunderdome. Unsurprisingly, Max's iconic V8 Interceptor also appears, albeit surprisingly briefly at the outset of the film, making this the third Mad Max film that the car is on the cast list, and the second that it's totaled after the booby trap explosion in Road Warrior. What else you got, Ryan? Any more cool little things?
Let's see here. I thought it was cool when it was night and the satellite was passing over, and they were like, "That's what people used to watch the shows on." They're like, "I wonder if there's anybody still out there transmitting the shows."
Yeah,
like talking about the
that's
old
cool.
world.
This says the bride's cage. I guess they're sort of comparing it to Thunderdome. The actual, cage in Thunderdome.
The old ladies were badass. The one old lady who, she was like, "I've killed every man I've met out here." Shot him right in the head, right in the medulla. Like, and then they're on the road, and she's literally only headshots, like killing all these guys. It was so cool.
Oh, I just thought about something. So, like, when Nux at the beginning is like yelling like, "Take me, I can go, I'll take my blood back." The ADR was not great. Like his lips weren't super lined up, but I'm realizing that may be because they messed with the speed, and then he had to try to match the speed. That's probably why they had to ADR it, because he sped it up. But then he was probably having trouble getting it perfect because it felt off. You know, he didn't seem like it was coming from his mouth exactly. That's probably because of the speed.
The last thing that I really liked about this movie was how everything came back around. Like his IV, he ended up, he had it and he ended up using it to save Furiosa's life.
That's right.
The stuff with the plants and everything. The old lady died. She passed it on to, I think she was called the Dag, the younger lady. But so like it starts in the Citadel and it all comes back around and finishes in the Citadel. Just really cool how he put everything together.
Which I think it really ties into that race kind of feeling of it. Yeah. You go to the starting line and then you're back at the end.
Yeah, even their theme of like live, die, live again. You know. Well, we've decided George Miller is a genius.
So
take back all the bad stuff I said about him stealing.
He stole Beyond Thunderdome. I mean, he was really he was grieving. He didn't know quite how to make that movie land a plane. Obviously it crashed into the desert, but he's back on top with. After 30 years, he really got it together. Spent some time with pigs and cartoon penguins. Yeah. Now he's a genius again.
Full circle on everything.
Also, last thing, sorry. The other thing that like Easter egg type thing was the brothers. One's 7 foot tall. One's
1 foot tall.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the guy that's small is in charge, and the big guy is a baby, and hence why he had babies all around his body. On his knee pads there were baby faces. Around his neck he had little doll babies. Wow. So it's all like, it was kind of like a reference to Thunderdome with
Master Blaster.
Master Blaster.
Yeah.
Whoa, that is cool. I didn't even think about that.
That's interesting.
Awesome.
That's awesome. So I guess we gotta figure out what movie series we're going to tackle next at some point. But yeah. Let's start again from Mad Max 1 and then just live, die, repeat.
Live, die, live again. Here we go. Well, this has been fun. We've learned a lot about the world of Mad Max over the past 4 weeks. We've spent a month of our life in the Mad Max universe, and I don't regret a second of it.
Me either.
I'm just happy that Ellis went on vacation so I could do Fury Road with you.
You got to be in you did get to do the cool episode.
We need to give him some more PTO maybe so I could do this.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, till next time, we'll see you guys then.
See ya.
See ya.